And the first people that I'd like to introduce you to and turn the microphone over to are Tom and Jeanne Gargiulo. Tom and Jeanne had lost their Long Island home as their neighborhood was virtually washed away by Superstorm Sandy. The story of their resilience, the story of their indomitable spirit, I think will inspire you. They're great friends of the Red Cross, and they're just great people. And as soon as you hear them talk, you'll understand, hey, they're not from around here. So without further ado, I'd like to turn it over to Tom and Jeanne Gargiulo. Please give them a big welcome.
Who said I have an accent? Anyway, thank the Red Cross for having us here tonight. Since Tuesday, we've been here. You have a beautiful town here, Dallas, and we went to Fort Worth, and can't thank you enough. I'm Tom Gargiulo. I work with special ed children for the last 32 years, and I coach high school varsity lacrosse and basketball for the last 38 years with my dad, who's 80. We're still coaching. And this is my wife, Jeanne, who's a nurse practitioner, and they're going to have a doctorate degree in a few months. We're all very proud of her. And we're here to just tell you our story about Hurricane Sandy. All right, Jeanne, take it off.
First of all, how do you like our red outfits? It's like the prom for us.
Yeah.
So Tom and me have been married for 29 years. We have 3 boys, Thomas and Ryan. They're twins. They're 25 years old. And we have our son, Sean, who's 23. We live in a small village on Long Island, Suffolk County. It's about 35 miles from New York City. It's a waterfront community. Our graduating class from Babylon High School is about 120 children. So most everybody in the village knows each other. On the weekend of October 26th, we were warned by the media to prepare for upcoming Sandy. So we did like most of our neighbors did. We tied all of the backyard furniture together. We took all the things from the garage. We elevated on tables. We got batteries, lots of batteries. We filled our bathtub up with water. We got propane for the gas grill outside. We took our son Sean's fish, the Oscar fish, and moved them. We put sandbags all around our house. We got a cooler full of ice, and we moved our cars up about 2 miles from our home. In our neighborhood, you could feel the tension. It was just, everybody was scurrying all around, and everybody was racing around. Everybody was preparing. Our local hospitals were taking patients and transporting them to other hospitals that were on higher grounds. They moved them from one area, which wasn't high enough, and then they moved them again to other areas that were higher. Our 70-pound dog named Rambo, 2 of our sons, one of them was away, and my husband and myself, we moved in with my in-laws. They're about 3 miles from where we live. We live on a canal on the Great South Bay. Sean, one of our youngest boys, prior to him going to Kings Point Merchant Marine Academy, he had a cat, and he had asked us before he went away to the academy that we could please take care of his cat. We were pretty much a dog family, but Sean loved the cat, and we swore we'd take care of it, and I did. I really did. I changed that litter, and I fed the cat, and within a week, the cat died. So before Sean was going out, and he had heard of the storm, but he now works on the oil rig in the Gulf of Mexico. He's an engineer. He said, just take care of my fish. Don't let what happened to my fish. What happened to the cat happened to my fish. So my husband, he's not a big fan of fish. We live on the water. We have fishing poles. We've only caught 1 fish in our life. And
Jeanne caught it.
We didn't know what to do after we caught it. It was flipping all around the boat. But anyway, we even prepared by calling the local pet stores, and we got there's something called an aeration, that you can actually aerate your tank on batteries if your filter goes out without electric. So we actually even bought that thing with batteries. But that storm was coming, and I was just so afraid if the water came in our streets. It's so hard to walk through that water with the current pushing against you, let alone carry a 50-gallon tank with you. So Tom and me, I begged him. I said, please, Sean's going to be so mad if these fish die. So we got the little net Sean left us when the fish were tiny. It was a little tiny net, and the Oscars grew. They probably were, I have no idea, 3 pounds by now? Tom says a foot. They weren't a foot, but they were big. So there we were trying to scoop up the fish with a little tiny net, and it wasn't working. So our neighbor next door gave us this big giant fishing net, and it was so big that it hit the ceiling, and we still couldn't get in the tank. So we eventually resorted to using a spaghetti strainer, scooped those fish out, and relocate them to my in-laws' house. The fish survived, so that was a really good thing. But anyway, that night at my in-laws' house, it was so scary. The winds were like 115 miles an hour. They said the surges of the water went up over 14 feet above normal tide. Trees were sparking, transformers were blowing. It sounded like explosions were going off. There was fires burning, there was houses going down. We saw like trees like getting uprooted right next to us. And this is 3 miles from our house. The next day, it was a really sunny day. Governor Cuomo had, declared the state of emergency. So we wanted to go down by our house and see what happened. As we approached our house, we drove as far as we could. Then we had to get out of our car, and the policeman made us show us our license. And just to like see his facial expression was upsetting alone, just seeing that. But anyway, we walked down our street, and we're going to show you a PowerPoint presentation in a few minutes, but keep in mind that PowerPoint presentation is the pictures we took. That was basically about 24 hours after the storm when it was considered low tide. So the water was waist high even 24 hours later, and you could smell the raw sewage and the oil, and you could smell the gasoline, because a lot of the boats in our area, being a waterfront community, had toppled over, and the boats were just tied up to trees at that point. They were very close to hitting other people's houses. It was just absolutely overwhelming. And in the midst of this, my husband's father, Andrew, who he described as a coach before, he was 80 years old, wound up in acute congestive heart failure that weekend, never sick a day before in his life. And he eventually wound up getting a defibrillator. He's fine, he's doing really well. But kind of kept our eye on the ball, meaning that there's other things that are more important at our house. So anyway, our house had taken on about 6 feet of water. And as we entered the house, the smell of the gasoline it was overwhelming, because all the things that we piled high up on the tables in the garage, everything toppled over. We had no cell phone service for weeks, no gas or electric, no running water. The Long Island Railroad was shut down for weeks. People couldn't get out of their houses, and if they could get out of their houses, there were so many trees that obstructed the streets. Bridges were closed, the tunnels were closed. The National Guard was patrolling our neighborhood. Helicopters were flying around constantly. If you could get out, you'd have to wait. Unfortunately, New York didn't have that odd and even thing in the beginning, so you'd have to wait hours online for gas, which just caused more problems. I was a nurse. I was trying to get to work, and you had to be nervous about getting gas to get in your gas tank, so that was an issue. The grocery stores were running on generators. You could only buy non-perishable items. A few days after the storm, Hurricane Sandy came, a big giant snowstorm, and it was so cold. Your volunteers must have been so freezing in our territory. It was bone chilling. One of my patients, they used a kerosene heater, and their disaster was their house caught on fire, and her husband didn't get out of the house. My patient did. But there were so many businesses, there were so many homes and families that were disrupted. We felt so hopeless. But it didn't stop your volunteers from coming down.
Okay, I'm up now. I can't tell you how challenging it was through this. I'm a big guy, as you see, but when this water was coming over, I got to tell you, it was very scary. It just poured over a feet at a time. It didn't stop, so it was very scary. But through this process, there were many organizations, such as the fire department, our local Knights of Columbus, Girl and Boy Scouts, Sons of Italy helped out the community. But there was one organization that stood out, and that was the American Red Cross. It was one afternoon. All of us were out in the streets. It was like World War III hit. Everybody's furniture was on the end of the driveway, and we took our breaks during the day. We had to take the sheetrock off all the kids, and I had 3 boys, plus I had a lot of people helping us out. We're all sitting out there on our beautiful pink couch that was destroyed, having a good time out there, just relaxing. We hear a bell come down the road, and I said, "What's the bell? What's going on?" So it was getting dark out, and you hear a voice come out, "The American Red Cross, we have food here." And I got to tell you something, that was one of the happiest moments of our life. That truck pulled up, and they served our whole neighborhood with hot meals. And not only did they serve us, they made us feel so good. And then they came twice a day, and I have to tell you, it was just outstanding. And as you can see, we like to eat, so we did enjoy their Swedish meatballs. It was pretty good.
Speak for himself, no?
But this organization really stood out. I got to tell you, the Red Cross, I can't thank them enough. Now, the Red Cross disaster response to Hurricane Sandy was one of the biggest in over 5 years. Now, they supplied, as we said, shelter and relief supplies. They served almost 17 million meals over there, and that was pretty unbelievable, in snacks. They handed out 7 million supplies like cold weather items, water and blanket, and provided almost 113,000 health services and emotional support contacts for people living in very tough conditions. They were just unbelievable. They provided more than 163,000 overnight shelters, and they mobilized more than 17,000 trained workers. And a lot of people came here from Dallas and Fort Worth, and we can't thank you enough for coming to New York and Long Island. We really appreciate that. Now, part of the Red Cross efforts over the next several months involve one-on-one work, helping those who had trouble finding assistance on their own. Now, the volunteers they provided for the American Red Cross are very compassionate and guided residents on how to take the first steps toward recovery. Now, we were very lucky enough to meet somebody in this room she became a family member to us. She was so great, and that's Anita Foster. Anita, where are you? Is Anita here? Because I can't see too well. I'm going to ask you a favor for New York. Give her a nice round of applause. That's from New York. She was just outstanding. Although the only thing, we differ on is I'm a Yankee fan. I apologize. She's Texas Rangers, and we know the Dallas Cowboys. But I have to tell you, I'm going to be going back to New York tomorrow. I got my Dallas hat, and I'm going to wear it. I'm going to wear it, and actually it fits my head because we tried a lot of them yesterday in Dallas Stadium, and I got a big head. But we went to the top, and we saw the double X area there. But I'll wear this proudly, saying I was here, me and Jeannie, and I can't thank you enough. And again, Anita brought us to many places that we didn't know about. We went to Dallas Stadium, but I thought she said we're going to the stock market, so I called my son for some tips. And honestly, it was the stock yard, and we really didn't know. We thought Longhorn was like a telephone company, and it was cattle with the big horns. But, we went to an unlimited rib place, and we actually closed them down. It was all you can eat for $9. And we learned that nobody here knows what seltzer water is. It's soda water. We didn't know that. But we learned a lot, and we got to see the JFK and the 6th floor museum, and it was just great. But Anita, I thank you very much for everything. We're going to be friends for all the rest of our lives, and you guys are like family to us. So again, we're very happy, and like I said, you become a family to us. So what we're going to do is at home, I asked my town supervisor and the CEO of Red Cross, I like to form a preparation disaster team in our own town. We have about 8 towns, and he said that would be great. His name is John Miller, and right now I got about 30 or 40 volunteers that are going to help us out, and we're really looking forward to it. But now life is still not back to normal at our home. We were the first home to try to elevate our house. We went up 5 feet, but unfortunately on February 9th, the hydraulic lifts collapsed. So the house went down 3 feet to the back and 1 foot this way, and the house was totaled. But that's okay, because we'll be back. We're going to take our time. We are living. I know we don't look in the senior citizens community, but what are you going to do?
I can't believe it. How could we be in that?
I know, but we do look pretty good. But honestly, for everybody here in Dallas and Fort Worth, on behalf of our little small village, our community in the water, our town, we can't thank you enough. We really do, and I appreciate it. Well, I'm clapping you guys. Thank you very, very much for everything you've done for us. And now we can take it away with the film. Okay.
So Amanda's going to put on this film for us, and just please keep in mind it was 11 o'clock the next day following the storm.
Okay, this one's for Gabby.
Jeannie did a good job. She put that together, huh? Did all right.
You wouldn't have wanted to be a member of my house the last few weeks putting that together. There's a skill, and thanks to Anita, she just fixed it all up. But anyway, lessons learned from Hurricane Sandy. You can never fool Mother Nature. Refrigerators and pumpkins can actually float. We all have the potential to be resilient. Don't take for granted sleeping in your own bed or taking a shower in your own home. Candles don't give off heat. You can live without TV and the internet. Don't ever throw your washing machine out to the curb before you check to make sure there's no laundry in it.
We had a lot.
Neighbors and community residents can be amazingly generous, offering a place to sleep, a hot shower, and coffee supplies. We were shattered, but we weren't broken.
It's gone now.
Maybe we are broken. But anyway, the whole country is vulnerable to such acts and catastrophes of such. Tornadoes, hurricanes, fires, sinkholes, and flooding. We know that the American Red Cross has truly played a big part and a significant role in decreasing the potential for many lives that could have been deaths instead. We speak for all the victims of natural disasters and human catastrophic events that the American Red Cross has reached out and touched so many of our lives. We thank you for your broad shoulders. We thank you for your optimistic attitudes and your kind spirit, for having volunteers drive hundreds of miles away from home just to help us out, and for all of those that flew into New York in a nor'easter and jeopardized your own life. Thank you for American Red Cross for putting such a strategic plan together and orchestrating this plan so well and handling a disaster of this magnitude. It was just in a matter of hours that this whole thing came together. We thank you for your endless energy, for giving us the support that we so desperately needed. We thank you for your kind acts and for finding avenues to get through this process of a recovery. Thank you for being our light in the darkness. Thank you for giving us this opportunity to share our experience with you. And this is what we've learned from Texas. We have learned that you all is a term that men and women use here. We've learned that Dallas and Fort Worth are two of the cleanest and nicest places we've ever been to. No one in Texas knows how to blow their horn. That is, unless you're going down a one-way street, going the wrong way.
I've never heard no one blows their horn here.
We found out that your chicken fried steak is absolutely amazing.
4 of them.
Your weather here is spectacular. We couldn't have come on a better week. You have all shown us what Southern hospitality is truly all about. To all of the volunteers, we thank you for giving your time, for risking your lives, and for taking time out of your own family. We thank all the donors for contributing to a world-class organization and helping thousands of people through this recovery stage. I can't thank you enough. I can't tell you, between the volunteers and the donors that make it all happen, that you've touched so many people's lives. And Tom and me, we laugh about it, and we still have a lot of challenges ahead of us. And we try to keep things in perspective with what's really important. But you have impacted our lives. The American Red Cross will be somebody that we'll always be close with, and we will continue to volunteer to help in what way we can. But for everybody that has helped us in any way, and all of that Eastern Seaboard, and basically any of the disasters that have happened, that you've touched so many lives, and we thank you from the bottom of our hearts.
Thank you. Yours and mine.
So enabling that kind of a response is enabled, well, by volunteers. The American Red Cross nationally is over 90% volunteers. Here in North Texas, it's more like 96% volunteers. Volunteers are what run the American Red Cross. That's the fuel that enables us to do these things. And volunteers come in all kinds of shapes, sizes, abilities, desires, histories. And we're privileged to have some great volunteers join us now, and we're going to, in a little panel that's going to discuss what it was like. These are North Texas volunteers that deployed that day. I'm going to introduce them, and then collectively, after I introduce them, please give them a round of applause, and we'll start that panel. So just raise your hand. Will, Dr. James Williams, he's been a volunteer for 8 years, and he's volunteered as a leader on many disaster operations. As a matter of fact, when I first joined the Red Cross, Will was the first shelter manager I met when I wandered into the shelter in Lancaster. He's deployed to the Sandy relief effort as a mass care sheltering manager. Dr. Angie Johnson. Dr. Johnson, you don't have to be a rocket scientist to be a Red Cross volunteer, but it doesn't hurt. Dr. Johnson is a SES, Senior Executive Service, retired from NASA, and now has volunteered with us for 11 years, served as a volunteer leader for the Red Cross since retirement from NASA. She's deployed to Sandy as a client casework supervisor. And here's what we do. We take great volunteers and we make them employees. And Dr. Johnson has just accepted a position as a Senior Disaster Program Manager to share her experience with other Red Cross employees and volunteers. Rounding out our panel is Julio Campos. Mr. Campos has been a volunteer for 8 years and deployed to Sandy as a mass care feeding service associate driving an ERV, or emergency response vehicle. So go ahead and give it one more time for our panel. And we'll get going. Does everybody have a mic that works? Yours doesn't work well. Now try it, Will. That's working. Doctor,
Yes.
doctor?
I'm good.
Really? Okay, great. We're ready to start then. Why don't we kick it off by giving us a kind of a timeline. How long was your deployment? We'll start down with you, Will. How long were you deployed to Sandy?
I was down at Sandy for about 2 weeks,
Okay.
and it was a great experience. It was a really great experience.
Okay, Julio?
I was deployed for about 2 weeks as well.
Okay, and
I was deployed for 6 weeks.
Ooh, they make you stay there till you got it right? Okay. All right. Well, so you deploy, and that's pretty typical. It's a typical 2-week deployment to go down there, although we do have situations where certain expertise is required, right? So being a Red Cross volunteer spans a whole bunch of different skill sets. Somebody tell me something that you've done, learned, been a part of in your civilian life that made you uniquely suited to do the work you've done with the American Red Cross.
Well, I'll start with that. At NASA, I did a lot of policy, planning, organizing. What I've learned when I go out on these deployments, sometime organizing is the most important thing you can do. And that's what happened in Sandy. I was deployed as a supervisor, but I started volunteering to help out. And after that first 2 weeks, I was asked to be a manager, and we call it a field promotion, just temporary promotion to help out. But I served it as the Clyde casework manager, staffing manager. So everybody that came in that worked cases came through me to help them, assign them to jobs, and to make sure they were taken care of while they were there, whether it was health. But someone mentioned the weather. The weather was torturous for a lot of people. We had a number of people that came in 2 days, they had to go back home because they got sick. So we have health service and mental health services there to help all of our volunteers.
Awesome. I've seen a lot of different functions that work, different skills throughout, looking at our amazing volunteer force. And we can use pretty much anybody that has a heart for doing this. Now, what would you recommend if somebody wants to become a Red Cross volunteer? They got it in their heart. What would you recommend for them to do just to take that first step? And what would you tell them to expect as they become a Red Cross volunteer, want to be active in disaster? You want to pick that one up, Will?
First thing I would definitely suggest is first, as you said, take that first step. Come in, get the orientation classes out of the way, meet other volunteers. Those are some of the most important things for them. And speak to them if you have any questions. I'm sure, as I would, and any other volunteers or staffers, that they'll be more than willing to answer any questions that you might have. But take that first step is the best step.
Now, dialing it back to Sandy for a minute. I mean, all of you spent some time there. We've just seen the Gargiulo's film, seen some pretty moving images, heard some moving stories. Do any of you have a particular story, something that touched you during that deployment there that you'd want to share with us?
Sure. I was driving the herbs, and that's the feeding units that we send out. We did a lot of work just finding the groups of folks. Some of the folks that were already out there and doing some recon, trying to figure out where everybody was, who was where, and what was damaged and what wasn't, where we could go. Even the police departments were overloaded, and the firemen and everybody that was there doing the response. So it was up to us to go out and look. So we reported back. One of the really neat things, I was in an area called Seabright, and it was a really neat little community. It was actually off of a major thoroughfare, and it was completely shut down from the rest of the world, really, at that point. We negotiated with the folks there that were there, the police officers, and I told them, I'm not out of my mind. I'm just going to go run down there just real quick because I got a feeling. And the crew and I went down there, and we were able to find quite a few folks that were there and made their stand there. The police just hadn't gotten time to get down there. They were without water, food, everything. Wow. And we got a chance to meet these folks and build a relationship with them. One of the neat things was that the first day that we went out, they didn't believe what they were seeing, that we're giving away food, and it's warm, and it's, it's really cold out there, and it's free. And they asked us, where'd you guys come from? Well, we came from Dallas, and they didn't believe us. So we pointed to our rig, and it said Dallas, Texas. And they said, well, what are you serving? I said, well, what do you think we're bringing from Dallas? Ribs and taters. So we had a real good time. The organizations that we partnered with were cooking up a storm, and it was awesome. But what was really neat is that broke the ice with them. And a couple of days later, they were having cocktails there. And they go, why don't you come back at 5 and have cocktails? And I said, no, I'm going to be busy because I'm bringing you dinner. So they said, great, and we had a great laugh. But it was really neat to see that little community come back to life a little bit while we were there. And it really had to do with the amount of volunteers that we had out there. I was just a very small portion of a multitude of folks that were out there doing things. So, the three of us up here are only representative of a very, very large contingency that was out there. So,
Go ahead, Doctor.
I have a short story. It was so heartwarming to see how neighbors help neighbors. And so the family told us about the gas shortage, I can call it that. But you cannot imagine, we drove 3 blocks and the cars were stacked up waiting, and they had police at the gas stations to get people in. The most heartwarming moment was when one guy had run out of gas. So every time cars moved forward, he would get out of his car and push. But at this time, we happened to be driving by, and there was another guy on a bicycle. As he was pedaling by him, he saw the guy jump out of the car and start pushing. He dropped his bike and ran to the back and pushed it 5 feet and went back and got on his bicycle. That lifted my spirits.
Well, you all have lifted our spirits tonight. So thanks for your volunteerism, that spirit that drives the Red Cross. Thanks for being there when we needed you. And thanks for making the deployment and being here tonight to tell us about it. So let's give one big round of applause to these folks.
So it was the Tuesday before Thanksgiving of 2007 when my friend Donna dragged me kicking and screaming to the doctor. For the past month and a half, I've been feeling extremely tired. And I must have looked as bad as I felt because when I walked in, when the PA walked in the exam room I was in, she said, "You do not look good." She drew some labs and she explained to me, worst case scenario, you need a blood transfusion, you're severely anemic. And so a few hours later, my cell phone rang. And that phone call changed my life. The voice on the other end said, drop what you're doing now and go to the ER. Your hemoglobin is 4. Normal hemoglobin for a female should be no lower than 12. So she had me write down my labs and told me to tell the ER nurses that I came from my doctor's office. That scrap of paper that I wrote down those labs on, it ended up being the ticket to the front of the line at the ER. The nurses and doctors truly were amazed that I was still walking with my hemoglobin so low. I followed a nurse around to one of those little curtain areas with a bed, and she gave me one of these sporty little numbers to put on, you know, the kind in the back where it's ventilated. And she explained the process of blood typing before the transfusion, and I found it kind of ironic that I had to give a little blood to receive more. The next day I received, well, that night I received 2 units of blood and was admitted to the hospital at Baylor. The next day I received a unit of platelets, another unit of blood, and a bone marrow biopsy. I celebrated that Thanksgiving with the awesome staff at Baylor in Fort Worth and was released several days later. And as most people were decking the halls and taking advantage of after Thanksgiving sales, I rang in that Christmas with the diagnosis of acute myeloid leukemia. At that time, my bone marrow was consisted of 75% leukemic cells. I was admitted to the 7th floor at Harris Hospital, where they put a central line in my arm and gave me 2 more units of blood and started my chemotherapy. The fight for my life lasted 6 months. I had 100 units of blood, 40 units of platelets, and a bone marrow transplant from an unrelated donor, who I named Hercules, because he was my hero. This stranger saved my life. But I also had plenty of other unsung heroes who championed my fight. And these were the anonymous donors from the Red Cross that gave blood that saved my life. Because of these donors, 6 years later, I'm in remission, and I'm happy to say, nice try, blood cancer, but I'm still here.
You and I talked a little bit, Lauren, on Tuesday about your history as a donor. So before you needed blood, were you a donor? Did you give often? What was your story?
I did give blood. I realized now that it was not enough. A lot of people don't donate as often as they should. Like, I did once, twice a year. And a lot of people, like when you have disasters like West or the Boston bombing, they come out and say, oh, I need to go donate blood. But they don't realize that the blood that they're using for those disasters is the blood that's already on the shelf. And they don't realize it takes 4 or 5 days to process blood before it can be ready for a patient like me.
When you were receiving your blood during that time, were you mindful of blood drives, things that were going on at work, people that knew about it and were helping, were coming in to give? Did that inspire some of your friends and family to participate?
Actually, yes, it did. The high school that I work at, we normally put on 2 blood drives a year. That year, they put on a blood drive in my name, and they had 3 times the normal people that would donate, that did donate. I also have a good friend who, because of me, he now makes it a habit to go donate every 90 days.
All right. What advice would you tell people out there about, is it hard? What would you tell them to donate?
Oh, it's easy. It's easy. It's simple pinch, You can do it on your lunch hour. You can do it on your lunch hour. But the bottom line is, blood can't be manufactured. It can only come from generous donors. And until they find technology or the medical know-how to make a blood substitute, we need those donors. And I'd also say, if you are ineligible to give blood like me now, you can host a blood drive or you can volunteer at a blood drive.
Awesome. Thanks for your advice. Thanks for being here. We're happy.
Thank you.
Thank you.